has been doing incredible work in Cameroon, really giving us an impetus to continue the work that we want to do and to start a new era of business in the country and of private sector development. So I want to introduce you to Viola Llewellyn, who is the co-founder of Ovamba Solutions. Ovamba, as she will explain, is a peer-to-peer lending platform and has been operating very successfully in Douala. And she will talk about how she has worked with members of the diaspora, how she has worked with institutional investors and so forth to bring in new ways and new vehicles to finance small and medium enterprises. So we're very proud of you, Viola. Really thank you for everything you're doing, not just for Ovamba, but for Cameroon and for the Chamber. Viola, you will.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Bonjour. Okay, this is going to be in English. Those who know me know that my French is a hot mess, so I'm not going to do that. But if I do speak too fast, or if my accent is too annoying, please just raise your hand and I will attempt to make adjustments, okay? So thank you to AmCham and Kemam for allowing me to speak to you about something that is incredibly important and very historic, and I will be as simple as I can. I've been asked to talk to you about unlocking Cameroon's finance industry, and I think the reason that the Chamber chose to mention that there was some locking here is because anybody who is familiar or is in business in Africa is aware that the biggest complaint is access to capital. Not because there are no banks, there are plenty, and there are some who are here, Monsieur Martin, EcoBank, but really because the systems and pathways to move that money is not as easy to understand and is not as easy to manipulate. And the sole purpose of Ovamba is to create ways and means to move money quickly to the businesses that need it. And so we talk about unlocking Cameroon's finance industry. When we first arrived in Cameroon nearly 5 years ago looking for ways to do business, we constantly ran into problems about how to persuade anybody to invest in the region because they could not understand how does it get in and how does it come out. And that was because we had not taken the time to understand the regulatory environment of our country and the CIMAC region at large. And if we were going through that, then you can imagine that the rest of the world viewed Cameroon and the rest of Francophone Africa as a destination that was not synonymous with investment success. And it continued to move the idea that there was no ability. Some of the things that we discovered in our search and in speaking with other people was that the barrier to entry was very, very difficult. The existing banks had been there for a very long time and continued to maintain a foothold, servicing customers that they select pretty well, but not always able to keep up with the speed of business development. And so therefore, new entrants into the market were not always able to form the sort of banking relationships that they felt would benefit their businesses. And so therefore, they would go to other individuals and the microfinances began to proliferate. The trouble with the microfinances, we found out as we looked at this locked situation, is that the outside world views microfinances as synonymous with charitable solutions. Charitable solutions are not sustainable for Cameroon or for Africa. Micro solutions tend to produce micro loans, which keep businesses micro-sized. When they're micro-sized, they cannot become worthy depositors or customers of EcoBank or of CBC or anybody else for that matter. So therefore they stay where they are and they don't grow enough to learn enough to become country champions. So when you look at it from the outside as an investor, it makes Cameroon look like a place where you either have super tiny and micro and then the super large with nothing in the middle by which you can understand how to drive GDP or how to create products and services for the middle piece of our economy. So as we started to look at what was on the horizon for unlocking Cameroon's financial potential, we began to notice a pattern. Borrowers doing private-public partnership and other large complicated deals went to large banks where there were true bankers, traditional bankers. Individuals in the middle, looking for smaller operational loans, went to microfinances, usually run by business owners and accountants who are not true bankers, and therefore innovation within those banking systems stayed very small, and the products that they produce for the depositors and borrowers don't always meet their needs. And then you, of course, have what we like to call the grey market, individuals who are not fully registered or regulated, who need money in a hurry to deal with their problems right now versus their long-term business plans, who go to tontines, njangis, relatives, and other unregulated environments. When you put this all together, even though we're saying that the banking environment needs unlocking, we actually have a very disparate and fractured environment that is difficult to pull together in order to quantify it. So Ovamba became an entity whose intent was to disrupt. And I don't want to use that word in a way that frightens or causes concern. But in any situation within an economic system, disruption usually comes along with innovation, which usually leads to identification of problems and solutions that have long-term benefits to all who are concerned. And disruption is truly just the movement from one state to the next. And in this case, the disruption came from taking a look at what was outside of Cameroon, and that was the development of marketplace lending. The irony is, marketplace lending is really no different from a technology-driven Njanghi. Africans are some of the world's most original bankers. The idea that like-minded individuals can get together to share risk and to borrow capital together in order to leverage is exactly what Ovamba does, but on a technology-driven platform. And I'm going to show you a slide of our company, Ovamba, at the very last Lend It conference in New York. And this is, I believe, is it the third or fourth one now in this new asset class. All of these company logos that you see here are from around the world who have found a way to emulate the most basic form of African-style banking onto technology platforms for different sectors. We see disruption in the mortgage industry in the UK, whereby individuals of high net worth can put money on a platform and that capital is used to fund the purchasing of a house. In our case, Ovamba has been able to raise capital from individuals in Cameroon who go to our platform to look at loans that we have originated from Cameroonian SMEs, and they've been able to invest in short-term notes of 3 to 6 months with a return of anywhere between 8 and 16% in order to invest in a loan. Our disruption and our techniques have been such that people like EcoBank have looked at ways in which we can extend their reach into the small and medium enterprise. And we've even had conversations with CBC who are beginning to examine whether or not this is a solution that makes sense for them. And again, this is just a very tiny snippet of what's going on outside of Africa's borders. At this moment in time, Ovamba is the only one that's doing what they do. And we took the time to understand our market because we had a multi-level affinity for the Cameroon market and our concern for the locked-up capital potential and its effect on borrowers. I myself have Cameroonian parents, despite how strange I might sound, but I was born in the UK. And if it hadn't been for the fact that my parents brought me to Cameroon when I was a child, I don't think I'd be standing here in front of you today. I would be part of the diaspora that looks at Africa and says, it's a technological wasteland, I'm not going to go there. But unless some of us come back with this knowledge and make a humbled attempt to assist, we're going to continue with the same things that we always complain about. My co-founder, Marvin Cole, is a Jamaican. He lives in Douala now, with a complete commitment to the fact that Cameroon is a leader in the African region as it relates to moving business forward. Despite what you hear about difficulties, those difficulties represent opportunities. So, as I said, Ovamba is a technological firm. We're a fintech company masquerading or looking a little bit like a bank, but we're not. The reason we're not a bank is because most of our expertise comes from creating credit underwriting models that are specifically geared towards the tribalistic nature of Africans and Cameroonians and the circumstances by which we find ourselves trying to raise capital instead of just using a flat model of 1 or 2 or 3% because that's what the entity does. We fractionalize our interest rates according to the credit worthiness of the borrower. When we've underwritten a loan, our same website attracts lenders, institutional investors, and people in Cameroon who purchase a portion or a whole piece of that loan and hold the note. Our technology oversees the process of collecting data, following up on collateral, and ensuring that people are paid back and taxes are paid where necessary. And so therefore, we are doing this in Cameroon with the intention of being a Pan-African institution in the very near future. As I said, we use this technology, and it's our intent not just to lend money, but to really make Africa a destination for investment with Cameroon the jewel in its crown. Cameroon is the gateway to the CEMAC region and is the holder of the purse strings of at least 5 countries with the same currency. We are a trading partner to all of these individuals, including Nigeria. And by allowing ourselves to do what we're proposing, which is to use technology, we can speed up the speed of business and lending and the collection of that capital, which is disruptive to the current environment of long-term, slower business because the world is changing. People need things quickly. And I think this is the right time for that. So by creating a separate asset class, it's easier to have a group of people doing something instead of just one. The outside world looks at Africa with a lot of distrust, and Marvin Cole and myself call it Afrophobia. If you see one company, in this case Ovamba, using technology to make loans, they might look at us as an anomaly. But by allowing an environment where there is healthy co-competition, where many people can win at once, we start to create a movement and a believable asset class that will attract investment into Cameroon, because there's not just one person, there are many people doing it. And this is one of the reasons why Ovamba chooses to partner with people like EcoBank, the microfinance institutions in the Douala area, and are seeking partnership with some of the other large traditional banks, because together there is benefit for everyone. There doesn't need to be just one winner. We're disruptive because we believe that it's about time people began to look at partnerships as a healthy way to run their businesses. We're disruptive because we believe that the time has come for people to assist what could be competitors to also win. If we don't all win together, we will fall short of the potential that the world sees in our region. So we change the thinking around who we can finance. When we go out to do a loan for a small business in Douala, we usually just sit down with the individual and we take a look at a lot more than just their invoices and their books. We take a look at who their friends and their family are, and we take a look at what their long-term plans are. If there's somebody that we can't fund, we take the time to educate them. If we don't do this, they don't become a better customer to CBC. If we don't take these smaller companies and teach them to be better credit-worthy borrowers, then the next ECP or private equity fund that maybe EcoBank wants to spin off doesn't have enough deal flow and healthy companies within which to do a private equity deal. What we do is so important, and the need to disrupt in order to make something better is what drives us. We believe in our disruption to remove the silos of traditional banks. That means that it's not just the big borrowers that go to EcoBank. They can come to an Ovamba or a private investor to structure deals that are of a rather unusual nature. Nick, we've seen this sort of thing of recent, correct? where we see the need to have private credit guarantees or private insurance on deposits when people are doing larger deals. We've changed the thinking around the amount of money that certain entities can borrow. We've sat down with individuals and we've lessened their credit lines because we feel that they're not mature enough to be responsible enough, or we've chosen to give them more than they expected, but we have structured it on a back-to-back basis so that they don't end up taking more than they can chew across the lifetime of a deal that they're trying to finance. So our underwriting system is mostly done online with about 200 to 300 more data points collected within seconds compared to your usual banks. We do this because we feel that the time it takes for a decision to be made is very crucial in the case of a freight forwarder. They need to know immediately whether or not we're going to be able to finance their purchases in China. They need to know immediately just how long their things are going to be in the port before they're incurring so much interest that the loan just isn't worth it. They might as well let it be liquidated, and we've seen this happen. So we leverage the activities of other financial institutions so that when they have their own borrowers, an MFI, for example, could come to Ovamba and say, can you co-lend with us twice as much as we can ordinarily give, because you're helping us to double our treasury, and we're now able to have somebody share risk with us. This is revolutionary thinking. This is not the usual way that capital is made available to individuals in Africa. Usually you get some private equity fund, puts a pot of money, it incurs interest while you're trying to figure out how quickly you can deploy against it. And it's not very efficient. So in coming to the conclusion of what I'm talking about here, the need to unlock our financial industry is good for Cameroon. It's good for the CIMAC region. It's good for Africa. It's good for private investors. It's good for every other company coming behind us that has innovative products and services in order to invigorate our economy. At the risk of upsetting anybody in the government here, I've often believed that it's the job of the private sector to come up with solutions to help each other in business. It is not the job of the government to come up with solutions, but for us to work side by side with the governments to follow the rules and regulations of the environment and work within that regulatory environment in order to come up with meaningful solutions that help people make more money quicker. I'm not interested in charity for Africa, I'm interested in profit. I'm interested in disrupting the environment with technologies that make things better. So I want to thank everybody for letting me have this very, very quick chat so that we can stay on schedule. And in terms of the financial environment and the potential for Cameroon, the reason we picked Cameroon is as follows. It's the most difficult place in Africa to do business. And the great thing about it being difficult is that if your idea is rubbish, you'll find out immediately, because you'll fail in a week. So far, we've been doing this for a year. Between French and English civil law, we are forced to address every possible problem that can come up, and we've been able to succeed at that. The regulatory environment is incredibly complex between trying to do factoring and invoice financing, contract financing, and high-tech lending. We've had to minutely decipher every piece of the law. With the help of people like Donatus Bomber, we've been able to get closer and closer to what we think is almost a perfect model. We are an enabler and very often no competitor to anybody. The only person who's a competitor to Ovamba is somebody who doesn't want to do what we want to do. And then you are competition to us. 262 different tribes with different aspects of business development, Muslim and Christian environments. When we sit down with the investors in the UK, Canada, or anywhere else, they're absolutely shocked and surprised at what we have to say about the viability of Cameroon as a destination for investment. And because of those kinds of conversations, we've been able to sit down with EcoBank in the UK, and remember that when we first signed that first 1.5 million investment into Ovamba before we even made one single loan. And what that means to you is that people are watching every last one of you in this room as a potential partner. Because if an individual from the diaspora can do that because banks looked at what we were doing and said, we're going to help you. You're not competition, you're an enabler. And I expect that by the end of this year, we would have maybe done about 100 million euro in loans. And at this moment in time, I'm asking anybody that is interested in being a borrower to Ovamba to get on our website, www.ovamba.com, and in 60 seconds, you will know whether you qualify for money from us. I want to thank you this morning, and I look forward to being your lender. Thank you very much.
There's the round for questions, please.
Quick comments.
We'll stay away from this table a little bit.
Thank you very, very, very much, Viola. You certainly were joking about Cameroon being the most difficult place to do business. I hope that was a joke, certainly.
It was very tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke, and that's why you are there. You are sticking in there because you see the potentials of doing business in there. So I know it's a joke. But I know you've been doing a fantastic job. We've done what we can do from the point of view of the Investment Promotion Agency to encourage you as much as possible to get the finances to the business sector. And that's what we think business has to be. It has to be a private sector thing.
Yes.
Government has no business in business. And that's clear. We facilitate the businesses to happen. And if we can give you the facilitation that you need to open up the platform to businesses, then we are not doing our job. So we are there to make sure that you can, and as I promised you, I want to move this as fast as possible. Get to the Minister of Finance so that you can get all the necessary approvals you need to help our business sector. That's what is important for us. And I wouldn't say much, but I know you've been doing a fantastic job, and I know in the days ahead, this platform is going to blossom in the whole of Africa, and Cameroon would have been the area where it started. Yep. And we will be so grateful, for such a thing to have ever happened. Thank you so much for working.
There was one thing I forgot to say. In participating with CAMAM, we've added an additional layer in our ability to attract bona fide businesses that are looking for a foothold in Cameroon. So if you haven't already told other people about the necessity to join the chamber, then you could accidentally find yourself not as close to the access to capital that we're promising. Correct? Okay. Any other questions?
Viola, could you please give the audience a sense of, I know there is an application process online, but just a sense of some of the requirements, the basic requirements that Ovamba looks for when accepting borrowers, please.
Absolutely, I'm going to do better than that. I think I'll show you.
Yeah, even the amounts and things like this. Give us an overview. Exactly.
Sure. Our loans range anywhere from, I'll talk in CFA, is that right, Bianca? Yeah, around about 3 million CFA, all the way up to about 120 million CFA.
Yes.
Yes. What's this? Yes. The needs are great, and the market is mature enough to sustain this. Our credit underwriting model can predict defaults with some serious accuracy. Up until this day, since we made our first loan in June, we've had 0 defaults. Cameroonians are an excellent credit risk when provided with the right circumstances. This is the website.
It's still loading.
You go to borrow, and you'll be posed with 6 questions. And those 6 questions are as follows. Let me run down here. You can use the slide rule, and you can change your currency, and you can decide just how much money that you're looking for. You can choose to evaluate yourself in euros or in CFA. The website is also in French, and very soon it will be in simple Chinese as well. These are the things that you need to be able to tell us. Is your company legally registered with the tax authorities? Mr. Bomber, you can tell the government that I'm not messing around with people's taxes. Okay? Have you been in business for 2 years? Yes. Do you have an existing financial, have you taken a loan with another institution? Yes. Are you over the age of 21? Yes. Is your business involved in any of the following, which we don't deal with, and that's why that question is posed in that way. And once you've done that, I failed my own loan.
Can you click yes on the last question?
Oh, that's right.
We just discovered.
Yeah, so it does
So it
work.
works.
Okay. So, sorry guys, I'm just an illegitimate individual here. But you get the idea. You fill in all of the questions. No,
There you go.
I now no longer do any of those things which should involve this. Oh yeah, adult entertainment. No, I'm not in there either. So there it is. Congratulations, you qualify for our 90-day invoice or trade finance loans, and it tells you what your monthly repayments could be depending on how much you were asking for. And as soon as you get that, an email comes back to you, and a message is generated back at my office with the sales team. The sales team call you immediately and begin the process of document collection. Within 48 hours, you will know when you can pick up your money and which bank account it will be. At the moment, we're very grateful that Echo Bank is our partner for most of our investor loans and our borrower loans. But we will be looking at other partners who want to participate in generating this particular environment. So those are the criteria. Try not to be involved in firearms and all of that stuff because you won't get a loan. And does that make it clear to everybody?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. Were there any other questions? Is it lunchtime?
No. This is your time. We'll have a coffee break and let people ask questions.
Somebody had a question?
Back there, Chad.
Yeah, that's a question.
Just a quick question. You guys require collateral securities?
All of our loans are fully collateralized, but that's something that you should know. We measure collateral with a certain kind of care. We don't like to over-collateralize loans, number one. And number two, we have a product that allows us to basically take a sales certificate in addition to maybe a smaller amount of collateral, which speeds up the process and allows us to take better ownership of the value chain of that transaction. So people who have things like a truck, company equipment, factory equipment, inventory, sometimes real estate title, it all depends on the nature. We're able to evaluate what you have and tailor the loan accordingly. Did you need a loan?
Secondly, I wanted to know,
Yes.
most you people put in Cameroon first? Like, most you have a business in Cameroon before?
I'm afraid so. At this moment in time, all of our loans are for Cameroonian resident businesses. We are beginning to see a lot of traction from people looking to borrow from the CIMAC region. This is why Mr. Bomber is eager to get us to the Minister of Finance to make sure that we're able to find the right path to have a CIMAC-wide product without running into any problems.
Another question here.
Sure.
Just to see if you are in the diaspora, it's time for you to come back home. Okay?
Hi.
Hello. Hi. My name is Akira. I live in the UK.
Hello.
I moved from Cameroon to the UK about 13 years ago, and like my brother Divine, he was in the UK and moved back to Cameroon, and seeing where he has got himself to, he's been trying to push me to start something back home, which has always been in the back of my mind. However, being young and independent, and you could have the idea, but the difficulty I face is having to get that back in or the support, and one of the key things is without the capital, it's difficult for me to be able to start something. I mentioned on the list, you mentioned, some of the criteria you mentioned on there, one of them was timber and primary agriculture. I just want to find out why you don't support those areas.
Okay. There are some very, very fundamental and even moral reasons why we don't support timber. I'll start with timber first. The extractive industries of Africa have been incredibly difficult on our economies. Governments in Gabon and Cameroon as well have put an awful lot of strictures around what can be moved out, with what license, where to, why and how. These are industries that are incredibly difficult to evaluate and are fraught with illegal behavior. In order for Africa to be a healthy place, we need to stop sending things out in their raw form. It's good to send things out when they've been through a level of production or half manufacturing, like Jerry was saying, send semi-finished goods somewhere for finishing, that's great. But what we really need are manufacturing industries. And I think the government is trying to encourage that by limiting extractiveness without any sense of responsibility. Now, you also asked about agriculture, right? Let me be clear. Agribusiness, we finance. So if you have a farm or you're involved in any kind of animal husbandry or poultry or something like that, if you need to buy equipment, we're your partner. If you're trying to buy seeds to start growth, we can't. It's not predictive. We can't quantify it. It's too much risk for us, and so therefore we don't do it. I'm also going to address an issue that you kind of brought up. It sounds to me that as returning diaspora, you're trying to find a way to develop a beginning stash of cash to start a business, right? Okay, I'll tell you what I tell other people. There's no point inventing the wheel. Find a partner, develop a friendship, develop a business, develop some trust. Find things that you can do to leverage and add equity and work out a deal that will allow you to earn a revenue from that. You should also look at the different programs that are available amongst the various NGOs and other businesses that allow people to have a start. If you stick around long enough, you'll understand the rhythm of our country and where you can access money. You can even go to a bank and sit down with a business plan and say, I would like to be financed, how can I do that? It's all about what questions you ask, and I wish you the best of luck. And you said you were young and single, right? Yeah?
Not really single.
Well, that's good, because I was going to say, the women are beautiful, you'll find a wife, and that's great. Somebody in the back? Oh, it's
It's rather a remark I have to make.
Of course.
And I want to commend your efforts. And in as much as Mr. Boba says it could be a joke to say the country is a difficult place, you've done a tremendous job for 1 year.
Thank you.
Let's not make a mistake. It's not flowering. It's not flowering. Investing in the country has some challenges that can be overcome with some seriousness. Mm-hmm. Now, let's get this straight. If no trip of any businessman out of the country, like this trade mission, is useless. Mm-hmm. It depends on what you make of it. If, to all of us, if you are coming to the US to immediately sign business deals, you might be mistaken. There is what we call due diligence that most of us do not realize. The word holiday is not known in this country. They know it as vacation. Traditions differ from places to places. It's important that when we come for a trade mission like this, we get to understand the landscape, the body language between people. You might think you are ready for business, but after conversing tomorrow with one or two businessmen, he might say this guy is not ready for us. That's it. It takes a lot to be able to sign one deal. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be next year, but it will come if you are serious. It takes that. So for these 3 days, please, something happened yesterday. I want to call Ron, is it called Ron?
Yes.
He did what we call a masterclass in trying to make us understand what it takes to do business in this country. It might be easier than doing business in Cameroon, but it has its own challenges. We have to take notion of that. For those of us who are coming to make deals within 48 hours, think twice again, and let's reform our strategy. Thank you.
Let me say something. Not a true word could have been said during this trade mission. The fact of the matter is, he is more than correct. 2013, you were one of the anchor people when I personally took a trade mission to Cameroon. Charmian, That was when I first met you. There were many people in this room who I met for the first time. I came with my eyes wide open, trying to learn. 2013, I came to Cameroon with a trade mission of American companies. 15 of them we met with individuals. Mr. Donatus Bomber was one of the keynote speakers in Douala. During that 2013 trade mission, I talked to approximately 363 different companies, asking very basic questions and making a lot of notes and trying to understand the business landscape. Came back to the United States, rewrote the entire business plan for Ovamba, went back, and it was from that trade mission that I got the beginnings of my partnership with EcoBank and raised my very first $250,000 based on the fact that I could come back. One of the investors was on that trade mission. One of our lenders came from that trade mission, and some of our borrowers and vendors came from that trade mission. That took 2 years. When I say Cameroon is difficult, it's difficult, but with the right strategy, it's attainable. Nothing good is simple. And it's one of the reasons why the prize is so big. If it was easy, it'd be a load of rubbish and we'd have no opportunities. It's hard for a reason, because it's valuable. And that trade mission was the beginning of where I stand today. And if you don't take the time to really investigate and have a clear sense in your head of what it is you're trying to achieve and be willing to ask the right questions, it'll just be another holiday. And so I thank many of the people that gave me my start, Mr. Bummer, Nick and Charmian, Amcham, and many other individuals, because that's what co-competition looks like. It looks like this. You go out, you ask some questions, you get some help. So I want to put the microphone down now and thank everybody for your time.